Penn State fans, how are you? Johnny McGonigal and Bob Flounders, me being Bob, back for another round of the Blue-White Breakdown. It is mid-May, just barely survived the Kentucky Derby, Johnny. I didn't have the winner. My horse ran third, but what are you going to do? It's the temperature's in the 70s. Hopefully that's here to stay. There's still plenty of Penn State news to talk about with you. I know that you're going to be making, hopefully, a trip to Harrisburg later this week. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. How are you? We'll have a couple things to get to here on the Blue-White Breakdown, but how is your post-spring going so far?
It's going well, Bob. It's going well. Yeah, looking forward to getting down to Harrisburg. I believe we'll be going to a Senators game this week, and and have a beverage or two. Should be good to catch up. I'm curious, who was your horse? Who'd you have in the Derby?
All in on Angel of Empire, the Pennsylvania bred, and I watched the race, and he ran third. And I'll tell you what, if you watch the stretch run and how he was moving, he could have easily won that race. And I hope they pass the Preakness and bring him back for the Belmont, which is a quarter mile longer, a mile and a half. I think the longer the distance, the better he is. Congratulations to Mage, but Angel of Empire was very close to winning that race. Two Phils ran a great second, but that's a talented horse, and hopefully, if he stays healthy, he's going to be heard from the rest of his 3-year-old season. But yeah, it was a really good race because there were three horses that really at the end were flying at the finish. And as somebody who likes to bet on the ponies once in a while, I thought it was a very worthy showing by the Derby field. So, did you have any money on the race?
I did. I had Kings Barnes either win, place, or show, and grooving early, and then just kind of fell off, which tends to happen.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? I'm not a big pony bettor. I don't really like. I watched obviously the Belmont and the Preakness and all that. I watched the big ones, but otherwise, just not. The tracks are not really for me, Bob.
I understand.
The sports book is. The tracks are not. But yeah, no. And then obviously we're well past spring ball now. We're getting recruitment towards the summer. The portal is still active in terms of players looking for new homes. It's closed to new entrants in terms of undergraduates at the FBS level. I say that because Penn State is active in the portal right now, where it's, they're still going through their post-spring assessment in terms of the roster. So they added someone since we last recorded. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we record again next week, if they add another player or two. That's just kind of how these things go. But yeah, and graduate transfers as well can enter the portal at any time. So God knows who they might get from that end, potentially over the summer. But yeah, looking forward to the podcast and talking some Penn State football.
All right, so we could probably just start there because we haven't had a chance to chat about one of the new additions to Penn State's football program. There are Penn State ties, it would seem, all over this edition, Johnny. James made it very clear at the start of spring, at the middle of spring, at the end of the blue and white game that he wanted to add some depth to his defensive tackle room. And the guy that the player that they've added is Alonzo Ford is a defensive tackle from Old Dominion, which I think most Penn State fans know. That's the program that is coached by Ricky Ronnie, one of James's former assistants, former OC, longtime assistant with him. Vanderbilt, a huge chunk of his Penn State coaching career. But yeah, they get the defensive tackle from Old Dominion. Just your thoughts on how you would kind of assess this, right? I mean, for the Penn State fans, I mean, they wanted to get deeper. This guy is listed at about, weights can certainly fluctuate, but around between 285 and 290 is my best guess. I think it was 287. But Do you feel like this was a priority pickup for Penn State, and how do you feel like maybe this would impact their defensive tackle room?
Yeah, apologies if my voice goes in and out. My allergies just decided to
Uh-oh.
start acting up like crazy. Oh
Gotcha.
my god. Yeah. So Alonzo Ford. He's a good player. He's a good addition. Given the depth concerns that James Franklin had, that I'm sure Deion Barnes entering his first year as defensive line coach will have when you lose
Yep.
a guy like PJ Mustipher, who has been your run stuffer, your lane clogger, at nose tackle, at the one technique in the middle, at D tackle for so long. They don't naturally have a replacement for PJ. Looks like Hakeem Beamon will be a starter. He's undersized, but more of a pass rusher, more of an inside disruptor. You've got Keziah Izzard, Devon Ellies, and Zane Durant as well, like all pushing for time, all pushing for those couple starting roles, and they'll be getting plenty of snaps. But it felt like they could have added some beefiness, some size at D tackle, and that's what they get with Alonzo Ford, who had 32 tackles last year, 5 TFLs, 3.5 tackles for loss. He's 6'3", 272 pounds, so not in that 300 range that you would necessarily want, but he does have experience playing nose tackle at Old Dominion. Now, again, you look at that, that's a lower level of football. I mean, it's FBS, but it's not the Big Ten. So can he play nose tackle at Penn State? Maybe if he puts on 10 pounds over the summer. And it's just good to have a depth piece, a guy who was wanted by other teams in the portal, and for Penn State to get him, I think is a nice job by them to at least partially address what they feel is a need. Because when James Franklin was asked after that blue-white game, hey, what's your plan for the portal? He said, we feel pretty good across the board, but we could use depth and competition at D tackle. Like, it was very, very cut and dry, very clear, and everyone knew it throughout spring ball, even watching practice and then the spring game, that they'd be in the portal and after some D tackle help.
Yeah, and sorry about that, Penn State fans. I got my numbers confused. I said 287. I reversed them. He's actually probably maybe a meal under 280 at 278. So he's obviously a guy that has played before. I guess my question is, it's not like 310 defensive tackles are just there to be plucked. There's a couple out there, and if they're really good, number one, they're probably going to stay at a school. There's a reason. I mean, they're probably not going to leave, and if they do leave, you're going to need to dip deep into the NIL pockets probably to get them. I think USC got the prize defensive tackle in the portal, the kid from Georgia. But it's great to have experienced bodies. But yeah, Johnny, it's just the question of, are they big enough, really? Are they big enough inside? They can attack with numbers. I think Jordan Vandenberg is a guy that maybe could also, he's certainly one of the stronger players on the team. We saw that during the winter conditioning. But, it's nice to have 5 or 6 bodies you like. But if none of them are 305 or more, like, what does that mean when Michigan rolls into town? And their running game. So I guess I'm a little torn here. I don't know how much bigger this guy can get, but I just wonder if this is really what James had in mind when he said we want to address the defensive tackle position.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because as much as he's a nice addition, it's not like a home run deal. It's not like this was a top 5 player in the portal that everyone needed, that you had USC shelling. It's a tackle from Old Dominion, a defensive tackle from Old Dominion who, like I mentioned, has some nose tackle experience, but that's at a lower level. And so, but you needed depth at defensive tackle. If not, you needed more size, which they don't necessarily get in Alonzo Ford, but they do get a good player. And I do believe he has he has 2 seasons of eligibility left, which is nice. So if you're looking at, and again, he's 6'3", like, I'm not a strength and conditioning coach, but if you feel like you can put some more weight on him over the course of a year, and have an even better option in terms of size and and fit and everything for 2024, then he could be even more of a contributor, perhaps. It's not just a 1-year rental, so to speak. This D tackle room is not, I think it's the weakness on the team. I think it's that and wide receiver, and that's just because wide receiver hasn't proven it. Losing Parker Washington and Mitchell Tinsley, and we've talked about it before. Dante Cephas coming in from Kent State, Malik McLean from Florida State is kind of a project. Cephas obviously super talented, but he's got to get ingrained and all that kind of good stuff. I think D tackle is very clearly the weakness on the defense, if not the team overall. And so you like to just add to that group and see if it pushes guys, to their limits in terms of competition and getting better and all that. But I don't think it necessarily solves the Michigan problem. And like I said, you're not going to pluck a 320-pound star defensive tackle out of the portal if you're Penn State right now, because that guy doesn't exist.
Yeah. Speaking of the portal, though, I noticed it like a day after it happened, and I just double checked my Twitter timeline. I believe Mr. Cephas had a "We Are" Twitter post on May 7th, an indication to me that maybe I don't know if he's arrived yet in State College, but he's not. He's doing that for a reason, right? Penn State is firmly in his 2023 plans, Johnny. The timeline for some of these guys maybe to get on campus. I mean, they can't really practice until August, but they can once they do arrive. They can, they're supervised by, the strength staff and the conditioning staff, and they can do some things. So I took that to mean that that there's been no change in Dante Cephas's 2023 plans. It was nice knowing you, Kent State. He's going to go to Penn State, and we'll see what he can do, in the very short term to kind of maybe inject some danger into that wideout core, right? And by danger, I mean vertical and run after the catch. James talked about, hey man, we need guys who can go 80 yards in the blink of an eye. And Keandre had that play in the Rose Bowl, but that was only one play. So I think this guy's a little bit more dangerous. So we'll see where that goes. But it sure feels like Dante's definitely in Penn State's plans for August practices.
Yeah, and also just to note, the spring semester just ended. Graduation in Happy Valley was this past weekend. So I believe the new semester, the first May semester, is starting soon. So that timeline would line up with him getting on campus and, like you said, starting to work with the strength staff. I believe there's a set amount of time that the on-field coaches, like Marcus Hagan's wide receivers coach, can work with him during the summer. I don't know off the top of my head how many hours that is per week or whatever. But at the very least, getting out and throwing with Drew Aller, building that rapport, working with Keandre Lambert-Smith and Harrison Wallace and the rest of those wide receivers. You mentioned that Dante is dangerous. He's also really experienced. I mean, over 1,900 yards over the last 2 seasons. He had over 1,200 in the 2021 season. Again, we talk about Alonzo Ford taking a step up from Old Dominion to Penn State in the Big Ten. Dante Cephas will be doing that as well from Kent State and the MAC to the Big Ten and Penn State. But you just pop on that tape and you're like, that could be your number one wide receiver. And Keandre Lambert-Smith, Penn State and James Franklin liked what they saw out of him throughout the spring. Harrison Wallace as well. But if Dante Cephas is able to play to the level that people in the building think he can play to, it's a potential number one wide receiver. And when you've got that, and if you've got Keandre playing at a high level with Harrison and the rest of the receivers, Caden Saunders and Amari Evans and the guys we've mentioned before, plus a Theo Johnson, plus a Tyler Warren at tight end, you've got a complementary passing game to an already established and well-oiled machine in the run game, which I fully expect to carry the load early in the season, especially that West Virginia game in the opener, which we found out over this past weekend will be 7:30 time on NBC. No surprise there. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a whiteout. I'm sure. I'm telling you, I'm sure Penn State fans would rather save that for a Michigan or whatever. But maybe that Michigan game is going to be on big noon kickoff on Fox, and have a noon whiteout again. I think I'm sure NBC would be pushing for a whiteout because that's one hell of a way to ring in Big Ten coverage if you're them. Either way, it's going to be a really cool occasion. And in that game, I would expect a heavy dose of Nick Singleton and Katron Allen because Aller and Cephas and Keandre Lambert-Smith and those guys are going to be working in the pass game at that point still. But I could see big things ahead with that Drew Aller to Dante connection.
Yeah, and a couple things I would think if you're looking for a whiteout game, there's probably a couple of things, couple of boxes Penn State wants to check to really make it a great whiteout experience. A night game is probably always preferred. A win, not a guaranteed win, but a win would be nice. It's great to play Ohio State in a whiteout atmosphere or a Michigan in a whiteout atmosphere. They've actually done pretty well against Michigan in whiteout atmospheres, but it's a November game, so they can't. I'm almost positive it's November, so they couldn't do a night game. I think unless Michigan would agree to it, and that's not going to happen. So I mean, I could, and I think didn't Penn State when they played against Purdue on Thursday night, wasn't it like Purdue's version of some kind of? It was like a stripe out or
they did a blackout or
something. Yeah, so it's not unheard of for that to happen really early in the season. I'm trying to remember the last time, the earliest whiteout I could ever remember. I think they had one in
Wasn't
September.
it Auburn?
Auburn was an early one. I think they had one against Illinois, I want to say, in 2008. That was an early one. So it wouldn't be that big of a surprise for them to go in September. But if it's not West Virginia, it could be at noon, a noon stripe out. It wouldn't be a whiteout. It would be their stripe out. And then I still think there's a market for maybe Iowa to be a whiteout game. I don't know how feasible that would be. I do know it would get the fan base good and stoked after the way that Iowa treated Penn State's players in 2021 out there. So I mean, but I guess it really wouldn't surprise me if this was the whiteout game. I think it's kind of cool that it's an NBC game. Also, to be an NBC game and have Todd Blackledge do the color commentary. I'm sure he's really looking forward to that. And I was just doing some research, just a little bit initial research on West Virginia. And that is it would seem like that is room service for Penn State for a whiteout game. That is a team that has really struggled. I think it will continue to struggle on the defensive side. And I think it could be that's going to be a long 3.5 hours for the Mountaineers, whether it's at noon, 3:30 or at night. But yeah, excited to see them at night because I was beginning to wonder how many night games they would have in 2023.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, Iowa would be another option. With that Michigan game being when it is, because it is in November, I believe. I mean, maybe a stripe out or something like that. But in terms of West Virginia, it should be a guaranteed win. And I guess you don't need the whiteout for it to still be a big occasion. It's a regional Power 5 opponent that you haven't played since 1992, starting a home and home.
Yep.
Night game on NBC. Like, you don't need the extra juice of a whiteout necessarily. And Penn State will be heavily favored in that game. They already are, which is how they put out the lines for the big games in week one and then some other games later in the season. I believe I saw Penn State's like a 17.5 point favorite. Wouldn't be surprised if we get closer to the season and it's even more than that. Just judging by what Penn State has back, the hype around this team and all that, and on the other side of things, not much going for West Virginia. But yeah, it should be interesting regardless of and I guess they'll decide this whiteout deal at some point over the summer before Big Ten Media Day. You would think, which is in late July, and we'll be out there in Indianapolis. We'll travel for that.
Oh yeah,
a few days ago. So looking forward to that, Bob. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this whiteout is going to be. But I think it very well could be the West Virginia game.
Yeah, I just double checked. So the Michigan Penn State game, I think, is November 11th at Beaver Stadium. So that pretty much is a wrap on that being a night game, unless the Big Ten somebody changes rules, and I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see, Johnny. Hey, one more thing I wanted to talk about with you here on our Blue White Breakdown is just because I think Penn State fans are still trying to figure out, just what the heck is NIL? Where is Penn State with it? What's going on behind the scenes? How much of an influence is NIL currently? How much is it going to become a bigger influence for years to come? And I just think that you had the opportunity to chat with Michael Mauti, who is really at the forefront, I think, of one of their top NIL collectives, the Lion Legacy. And I just, I checked back just to see your conversation. And I just thought maybe if you just wanted to share maybe a couple of maybe talking points just to kind of, if the Penn State fans haven't checked out your interview with Michael, they should do that on PennLive. But, I thought it was a nice little, it was a discussion that really kind of gives you a sense of where Penn State's at, but also where they kind of need to be. And Michael's always been a straight shooter, and I feel like he was that way with you. He doesn't really sugarcoat things. So maybe just a couple of points, Johnny, of kind of where Penn State is in the NIL game. What's the alignment like, with James Franklin? Is everyone on the same page? What are the biggest challenges? What did you get a sense of kind of where Michael thinks the NIL situation is with Penn State?
Yeah, a lot of those questions answered I had a conversation with Michael last week. He's the co-founder of Lions Legacy Club, which is the football team specific NIL collective. There are a couple of other collectives attached to Penn State that are not football specific, that are athletic department. Generally speaking, I believe one of the two is transitioning into being like a basketball collective because of the Micah Shrewsbury NIL, all that situation that helped him leave and go to Notre Dame. But Lions Legacy Club is football specific, and they launched in September. And so it's been 8 months, 7-8 months since the launch of that. And so I just thought it was, a good time to have a conversation with Michael about where he feels like they are, as a collective, as a program in terms of, comparing it elsewhere across the country. And really like this team and the run that they went on to the Rose Bowl and how important that was for fundraising and for traction. The way he explained it, he said that the last 8 months has been like building the plane as they fly it. But he emphasized that it's nice to have a plane. It's nice to have a football specific NIL collective. Because prior to Lions Legacy launching in September, they didn't have that. And everyone knows that while there's obviously, appreciation and support and backing for all of Penn State sports, everyone knows that football is the cash cow, is the main attraction, if you will. And the way that Michael has always framed it has been like, if football's doing well, everyone's doing well kind of deal. And so they've worked really hard over the last handful of months to get not only like NIL deals with, car dealerships and that kind of stuff, but also like meet and greets with fans and other, prospective donors. They had an event out at the Rose Bowl before the game. They had an event downtown State College before the Blue White game, the night before the Blue White game. So they're doing stuff like that as well to get, not only the players involved, but get more donors involved and get more Penn State fans involved. And this is a way in Michael's mind and the mind of many who are in that NIL space to give fans access or allow them to get access that they wouldn't otherwise have done prior to NIL, whether that's, talking to players at a hotel banquet, downtown State College or whatever. So, Yeah, a lot of good stuff in that interview. Would recommend everyone to just go, take a look if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Talked a little bit about the misconceptions of NIL, pay for play, and trying to change some minds there in the community. So yeah, I always appreciate Michael's time. He's a really good dude. Always has been, always will. Yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah, and just to follow up real quick before we close the show, how great would it be if you were like a high school football player and you're getting part of the coaching staff is Jordan Hill and Michael Mauti, and you're a defensive player? Like, that's pretty sweet, I think. And if you grew up a Penn State fan and you're looking over at the sideline and you see those two dudes, that's got to be pretty sweet. The reason I bring that up, Harrisburg alert. Jordan Hill is the former defensive tackle at Penn State. He's the head coach at Trinity, which is a high school school on the west shore of Harrisburg. Michael Mauti, I would think now that he's on his staff, is probably going to be, at the very least, he's going to be coaching linebackers. He could be the DC. But Johnny, that must be Trinity is by no means a big school, but they do have a high profile recruit, I believe, this year, or a high profile player in Pennsylvania. But anyway, it must be awfully neat to kind of to look over and to know you're going to get coached. You're going to get that level of coaching from those two guys. Both made it in the pro, so must be pretty cool. But yeah, he's also, in addition to his work with NIL at Penn State, he's also going to be a high school football coach in the Harrisburg area in the fall.
Yeah, and he's going to be the keynote speaker at PennLive's High School Sports Awards Banquet.
I should say that too.
Later in May, I believe it's on May 25th. And so that's what prompted the conversation with Michael was about that. And then we start getting into NIL and Lions Legacy Club and everything. But he was talking about how, appreciative he has been, because he's a Louisiana native, but being a Penn State legacy, he's always been intertwined with the Central Pennsylvania, with Penn State, with State College and all that. But he's now moved. He's living in the Harrisburg area as a coach at Trinity and working with Lions Legacy Club. And so he said really the last however many months it's been reacclimating to the area, reacclimating to the football community, the high school football community has been a great experience for him. And he's looking forward to continuing that. So yeah, it seems like really cool stuff. I mean, yeah, if you're a player on Trinity, or if you're like a parent of a player on Trinity and you're a Penn State football fan, like that's gotta be really sweet.
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't bury the lead too much, or our bosses will probably come find me. But yeah, so PennLive's High School Sports Awards Banquet is going to be, I believe it's May 25th. It's going to be at Penn Harris Hotel Convention Center in Camp Hill, stone's throw from downtown Harrisburg, May 25th, 5 to 7 p.m. You guys, if you guys want to go to it, you can get tickets. There's plenty of information. You can check PennLive for the information about the PennLive Awards Banquet. But yeah, May 25th, 5 to 7 p.m., Penn Harris Hotel Convention Center in Camp Hill, May 25th. Michael Mauti is going to be the keynote speaker. It's always a good time for a good cause. Definitely check it out. I think I just saved my job there at the end of this podcast, Johnny. But yeah, I enjoyed your Q&A with Michael. Looking forward to seeing you a little bit later this week. And we'll just go from there. Good luck in your future horse betting, maybe for the Preakness and or the Belmont. You can't win them all, kid. If anyone knows that, it's me. But yeah, looking forward to seeing you. And I'll be with David Jones for a podcast later this week. Make sure you guys check that out as well.